Welcome to the Bookish Hour with your hosts, Sarah E. Burr and J.C. Kenney.
Good evening, everyone. We are live, and welcome to the first episode of the Bookish Hour. I am one of your co-hosts, Sarah E. Burr, and I am joined by my cohort, J.C. Kenney. J.C., you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi, folks. Great to see you again. As you may recall, about a month ago, Sarah and I had a little celebration when our books came out. And so we got the idea of doing this hopefully on a regular basis. And my name is J.C. Kenney. And along with Sarah, we are so thrilled to have our very first special guest, the lovely and talented Judy L. Murray. So hi, Judy. Welcome.
Hi, how are you all? I'm so excited and honored to be your first guest. This is really terrific. Yeah, I saw your show the last time and I thought, wow, what a great beginning.
Well, we're super thrilled that you are here with us, Judy. And it's a special night because we are also celebrating something very special, which is your Agatha Award nomination. Will you go ahead and tell our viewers?
Cheers.
Yes, cheers. Would you go ahead and just tell your viewers a little bit about the what you're nominated for, what book is nominated for the Agatha Award, and maybe a little bit about the conference that this award is featured at? Because I think a lot of folks would probably be interested to know, like, where is this coming from?
Where is this coming from? Exactly. Malice Domestic is one of my favorite conferences. Not that I've been to a zillion, but I've been to more than my share, I guess. And it's always based in Bethesda, Maryland, which is very close to home, actually. And I was thrilled. They have nominated me for my first debut book, Murder in the Master, a Chesapeake Bay mystery. And that book is one of 5 nominated for Best First Book. And obviously, I was shocked and thrilled and super excited. And keeping my fingers crossed. So we'll see what happens.
Well, we can't wait to talk about your book and the process that goes into writing it. Before we get started, I do want to let our listeners know, or actually our viewers know, because you're seeing our faces too. If you have questions for us at any point in the broadcast, feel free to leave comments in the YouTube chat. I believe you do have to either be logged into your Google or your YouTube account to leave a question, but we are here. We're open books. We have some questions that we're going to be discussing ourselves, but anything that you guys have that you would like for us to touch on, please leave us a comment, and we will do our best to get to it during our broadcast. So before we get into our questions for Judy, a little bit about who JC and I are as your hosts of the Bookish Hour. Again, my name is Sarah E. Burr. I write several different mystery series. I'm a huge mystery fan. I write the Trending Topic Mysteries, the Glenmire Whim Mysteries, the Court of Mystery series, and I'm actually getting ready to publish another series with Touchpoint Press that is called the Book Blogger Mysteries. So there's always murder and mystery going on in my life. It makes me question, like, geez, why am I so obsessed with this? But I have fun. I have fun writing it, and I definitely write lighter mysteries. You're gonna hopefully laugh while you're reading them, even though the topic is, a little gruesome at times. I write cozy mysteries, lots of fun, fabulous friends, fun times, and my latest book is #FollowMeForMurder, which features a social media influencer who stumbles across a dead body and a PR nightmare. So, JC, why don't you tell us about your works?
Well, thank you very much, Sarah. First off, 5 stars to hashtag follow me for murder. I've read it and I love Coco, the main character, and all of her friends. Definitely check it out. It is a fabulous story and a fun read with a lot of good, wonderful characters. So like Sarah and Judy, I write mysteries. When I refer to my mysteries are contemporary whodunits. My mysteries tend to trend a little darker than what we commonly think of as cozy mysteries, because they often delve into some issues that cozy mysteries oftentimes prefer to avoid. Things like addiction, anxiety, some of those kind of things, because I'm a mess, so I write characters who are a mess. But I am the author of the Alley Cobb mysteries. The final book in that series, A Parting Shot, is actually coming out in, let's see, what today is, the 7th, 12 days, April 19th, not that I'm counting. And in addition to the Alley Cobb mysteries, I am the author of the Darcy Gone mysteries. Both of those series are set in the state of Indiana. That's where I'm from. And so that's kind of a little bit about me.
I just want to, so JC, thank you so much for saying those wonderful things about my book. I do want to point out that the first time, so when I'm a very avid reader of mysteries, and in one of your books, you had a scene where Allie, who has, she is recovering from thwarting a killer and being in this really harrowing situation. And she's having this moment of reflection where she's talking about her mental health and how she's needed to seek out help in order to process the things that she's experienced. And I was like, this is the first time that I've come across that in a lighter mystery novel, because, these characters are just repetitively finding dead bodies, and it doesn't necessarily always reflect in their mental health. So when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is something that would happen, and that's always stuck with me as a reader and then as a writer. So that I think that's very special. And you mentioned writing books that are based in the state that you live. Judy, I'd love for you to tell us about your background and where you live and how that has reflected in the world that you've created in your novel, Murder and the Master.
I would say to you that it's certainly part of my growing up with mysteries. As you said, I mean, I'm a fanatic, so of course, I own every Agatha Christie and every Nancy Drew, and it goes on and on, right? So I was the kid that hid under the yep, and I used to hide under the blanket at night with a flashlight, and my mother would come in at 2 a.m. and say, "Really?" And that hasn't changed. The only difference is that I don't have somebody, making me turn out the light. Well, maybe my husband does once in a while. So anyway, but really that's where it comes from. And back in high school, I was a newspaper reporter, and then I became the editor of the newspaper. And then I went off to college and I studied newspaper journalism. I'm a Syracuse grad, so we bleed orange in this house. And a little bit of Penn State in there too, because I have my master's in that. But anyway, but I've always dreamt that I'm going to be writing. And through my real estate career, which is really how I pay the bills for many, 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 many years, it has really given me, let's just say, the fodder for many stories that this is of the basis for this Murder and the Master and the series that's going forward. So I will tell you right now, I mean, as someone who was a real estate agent, oh my goodness, I was 25 when I came into the business, and I've been in all these years in so many different roles, coaching and training and managing big sales offices and marketing, working with marketing departments on materials, all that kind of thing. I wrote a real estate column about the marketplace for a national level news magazine for many, many years. Just a lot of things that I used as far as writing, but it was always real estate directed, because somehow, when you leave the house at 7 7:30 in the morning, you drive back home at 7:30 at night. It's a little hard to fit in the extracurricular, right?
Yeah.
As you both know. And I started something to give you a little bit of a process for people that are listening. I actually started Murder in the Master about 10 years ago, and I probably got through about the first 6 or 7 chapters, and then it just sort of gets set aside and, delayed and put off, and, you get lazy and you say, I just don't have the time or the energy. But about 3-4 years ago, I said, all right, I've always wanted to do this. I've got to do this. I will never be happy if I don't get the series started. So I started, frankly, I'd say goodnight to family and I'd go upstairs and I'd hide in a bedroom from about 9 o'clock till midnight, almost every single night of the week. And I did that for probably about 1.5 years to really get this nailed, and then work with trying to find an agent. I did go the traditional route, as you two know, and ended up having a great agent who specializes in mysteries and thrillers. She took me on, and then from there, very shortly after, we ended up finding a terrific publisher, which is Level Best Books. And so I went into contract with them for my first 3. Hopefully they'll want to have more. And that's where we are. So the first one was finished and came out last September. The second one, I just finished the manuscript. I'm going through the editing nightmares right now. That'll be coming out next September. So, but it really started off with my real estate background, because truly it is a business that's not like HGTV. Okay, houses aren't all beautiful. Most of them are strictly hem-ho. Some of them are really awful, and a few of them are beautiful. So, and buyers and sellers, when they go through this process, let's just say they're not necessarily at their best. So it put them all together with all the different people involved in transactions. And I felt it was important, I'll say this to you, I felt it was important that my protagonist, Helen Morrissey, be a real estate agent, be smart and serious about what she does. And I felt it was important to have a series out there that portrayed a real estate agent who really, cared a lot and was really invested in helping people through the process. Because I don't need to tell you, real estate can be a happy time. It can be a sad time. There's a lot of reasons why people buy and sell. And I felt as if there was so much interest out there with the public as far as how the back office of real estate really works. And I wanted to help give them a glimpse of that. What's interesting is in the book and my readership and the reviews and comments I'm getting back is that I get a lot of response back from people saying, I love seeing the inside of your business and really getting a better handle on what it's all about. So I tie that in. Really, it's not a peripheral part of the book. She is definitely, it's part of her day-to-day life. And I think that is frankly also legitimacy. So it's funny what JC said is about having some serious tones in that. I won't say that mine are as heavy as yours, but I also did want to have a woman who, she's in her 50s, she's not some youngster, and she's, going through some tough times, and she's trying to still, even in her 50s, trying to figure out how life works and how do you raise children who have now left the home and you miss them. They don't necessarily like your advice, and how do you deal with romance? She's a recent widow. That's part of the storyline here and part of the mystery. But, how does she get back into the romantic end of things? Does she want to? Maybe she doesn't even want to, so there's a lot of, she's trying to figure things out, which I think is really true with everybody. And I don't know that any of us, no matter what the age you are, have all the answers or have everything perfectly aligned in your life. That's definitely not the way it is. So.
Well, I think that the scene, because I had read your book, and the character of Bob Rickles, the fact that I feel like he is a real person, or he's a compilation of real people, and I'm just I can't believe that people talk to real estate agents like this, because I have not had to work with a real estate agent myself yet. My parents, they love their real estate agent. They love real estate. And so it was really interesting to see the back office chatter and the goings on. And I like learned a bunch about like how real estate agents are involved in like the development of, different, I don't even know what they're called, development sites or like, are the properties that are all going up. Yeah. And so I like, not only are you getting a mystery, but you're really getting insight into an industry that I think traditionally is portrayed in like a kind of light and fluffy way. I mean, I watch a ton of HGTV, and so it's just like, that's what my picture was. And Helen just kind of blew that out of the water with like all of the big personalities that she has to deal with.
Well, I think if you read the book, if you remember, there's a quick scene in there where talking about David Rickle, who's not one of her favorite purchasers. She can't wait for him to settle and be done with him. And she makes a comment, something like can't wait till she can hit delete over his contact in her phone. So yes, I mean, there's people like that. And we all know we have that in no matter what your business is.
Oh, for sure.
You have those people, right? So yeah, and there's quite a few scenes that are just sort of mixed in and out that gives you a flavor as to what it's really like to make a living in this business. So yes, it makes it fun. And I think in the end, I will mention this to you. I might be getting off track with you, but one of my favorite authors, I have every book he has, he wrote, which is Dick Francis. And Dick Francis was the British writer who was a famous jockey. He was the jockey for the Queen. And he when he retired from being a jockey, he began writing books about the race courses and being in the racing business. And I loved his books. They were all each standalones, different than a series. But what I loved about his books, and I felt as if I learned a whole lot about when I was preparing for my own, was the concept. I really wanted that concept of walking people through different pieces of the same business. And he was very, very good at that, whether it was the photographer or whether it was the jockey or whether it was the trainer or whatever. And I'm doing that in the same way with real estate. So I think it makes it fun, and I think people really enjoy getting a back office picture. I guess the best way to say it.
We have a question in our chat that I think we all probably can relate to. Is, have you ever created a character that you love to hate?
Love to hate.
I shifted my laptop and I realized that it was unplugged, and I had a notice showing up saying battery low. Like, oh no. Anyway,
we don't want to lose you. So our question, Judy, is, have you ever created a character that you love to hate? And I think that all of most of the people that are my victims in my books, I love to hate them, because it's like, oh, I'm going to just kill this person off. I feel that's kind of, I like to off the people that are not exactly the best to have around, because it's really sad when a good person dies. So I try to not have that as much. But character wise, somebody I love to hate. I would say that maybe I like to have redemption arcs for a lot of my characters, but one, at least in my #FollowMeForMurder series, I think the chief of police, he's kind of a thorn in Coco's side, but he's still he's still a good guy at heart. So there's a begrudgingness about him that it's I still really like him, but I like that he challenges Coco in ways that, she finds to be very annoying. So I think that that's probably where I would land on that front, for someone who doesn't get killed off.
For someone, it's really, that's an interesting question, Ashley. I don't know who presented it, but it's an interesting question. Probably with my second book, I definitely have someone who I really find super annoying. I really don't like this guy. Anyway, but but in Murder and the Master, what's kind of interesting is I think that my characters, some of them I start off really disliking, and I portrayed them as not nice people for different reasons. And then they kind of evolved into a more of an understanding of where they came from and how that happened. And they actually toned themselves down a bit. And then there's others who you think are just the greatest people in the world. And you discover as you go through the storyline that it's not quite what you think. So maybe that's part of red herrings. I love a story that has lots of red herrings. I want people, when they read the story, to constantly like, oh, I didn't see that coming. I should have seen that coming. You know, that kind of feeling. And I think that's what I accomplished with Murder and the Master. So, but in doing that, to do that, I think part of that is changing up your characters so they're not
for sure
predictable through the whole story. I'll mention one thing is one of the lead characters in the story is her childhood friend that becomes almost very quickly accused of murdering a builder. And what's interesting is the three people that I know in my area who've talked to me in person about my book, I can't tell you how many of them, her name was Susan in the book. They'd say, so who's Susan? You know, I mean, and it made me laugh because I wasn't really expecting that, but they really like latched onto, so who is she? And wow, you know, what a skank, you know, that kind of thing. And it was really, I was kind of surprised. So it's fun to see how people react to your characters as they go along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
JC, do you have somebody that comes to mind for loving to hate? I feel like I have, like, no offense, but I feel like there is a character, at least reading your books, that I like didn't like him at first, but then he like really grew on me. And I'm blanking on his name, but he's dating the chocolatier. He's like the woodworker.
Not the chocolatier. You're thinking of Ozzy, the woodworker.
Yes, Ozzy. I was like, is it Oscar? Yeah. No, Ozzy. Yeah. I find that he was like a iffy character that like really like warmed my heart after a time.
Yeah. He was fun to write. Over the course of the 6 stories, he started out as just this real mean, crusty guy that just, for some reason, had it in for my main character, Allie. And so it was fun to write him as just this horrible person initially. And then over the course of time, like you said, Sarah, I softened him up. Mm. And that it's kind of one of those things where it was an opportunity to look into character development, because at first he was mean to Allie, so Allie was like, okay, you know what, whatever, you know, I don't need this guy. But then you begin to slowly understand a little bit of why this guy is so gruff, and you know, he's it is who he is. And over time, though, we begin to see he does have some what we would consider redeeming qualities. And
I knew you were
by the
going to say
time
that.
we get to the 6th book, he and Allie kind of have reached an understanding. And so the one that two come to mind, really, that I love to hate, and Judy, I apologize, but I have a character in the Darcy Gone books, a fellow named Todd Meadows, who's a real estate developer, and he is just a super jerk. So I apologize. You know, it was just kind of
That's
the way
right.
that
There's plenty of those.
Okay.
Every profession has them.
Yeah. And then the other one that I enjoyed, and to your point, Judy, about having friends ask, okay, is this character written about somebody? True story. One of my coworkers, when I was writing Allie book 4, which was A Deadly Discovery, one of my coworkers was going through a divorce. And so I wrote the villain kind of off my coworker's ex-husband. So had a little bit of revenge, and so it was fun, kind of writing a villain based on someone who I consider to be a little bit of a villain in real life.
Oh, Judy, we actually have, sorry to interrupt you, but we have a really good question directed at you.
Okay.
In your 25 years as a realtor, have you ever had to sell a house where a murder has taken place? Are you allowed to even tell us that? I don't know, but that's a question that we have.
Actually, it's interesting you say that because I showed a property who the buyer and I discovered that that a wife was killed in the master bedroom, and it was a townhouse, and we didn't really know it until we went in to show the property, and my buyer was like, no, there's no way. No way. And it was a pretty brutal situation. Ironically enough, my husband, actually, who's also a real estate agent, he, not that long ago, no, I shouldn't say that. It's probably more like 10 or 12 years ago. He actually showed a rental to a woman who was going through a divorce. And they contacted each other. He then went and showed the husband, soon to be ex-husband, the house because she was moving there with the child, and they were doing the whole, where was the child going to be in the local school and all that kind of thing. Long story short, she said she was interested in the property, and then she didn't return his phone calls, et cetera, et cetera. And it was probably 3 days after Christmas, and my husband, you don't tend to watch the daily news, the local news very much over those holidays, and he saw the husband's picture up on the news screen, and he said, "Oh my gosh, that's my client." And
oh my God.
And he was found guilty for killing the wife.
Holy cow.
And the police came to our house. They sat down and talked with him, because when they looked at her car, inside the car was his materials from our multiple listing service with his name on it, his business card. And of course, and as it turned out, he was probably the last person. He might have been the last person, they think, if not, pretty close to it. Speaking to her before her husband killed her. So it's really, yeah. So things like that can happen. Thank God, I will say it doesn't very often. Although I do have some mysteries coming up that are based on fact. So, and actually, in fact, my book 3, I'm just beginning now to work on the outline, but it's going to be based in a B&B that my protagonist sells to a young couple who decide to turn this big old Victorian into a B&B. And she goes, and there is a crime there shortly thereafter. They're opening up this B&B. But ironically enough, I took it from the story of a house in my area called the Scissors House. And Scissors House was based on the idea that there was a ghost of a young person, teenager, who would wander the house with a pair of scissors because something happened in that house, 100 years ago. So, you put all these pieces together, right? And it makes it fun.
I was just going to ask if you've ever had to sell a house that's haunted or show a house that's haunted or something along those lines.
I haven't. I've shown houses where someone has died, in a not very nice way. So, it's not a happy thing, right? So,
but it sure makes for good inspiration for a book. As awful as that sounds, like all of this stuff that we're experiencing is just percolating in the back of our minds.
Yes, it does.
Ready to be put on the page.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to go back to JC for just a second about your comment with the characters and that kind of thing. And I think it's really important to have people that change, not just the protagonist, but people who morph through the story itself, because otherwise they're just cardboard characters and they're not people that you meet, in real life. And we all have good friends who aren't always perfect, right? They disappoint you occasionally. Other times they come through with, amazingly. So, that's really part of what happens with all of us. And I think it's important for people to portray that way, I guess is a good way of putting it.
Well, and I think because one of the things that I think as writers we are taught, and I think it's totally accurate, is that when we are developing our characters, that in the villain's mind, they're the hero. That it's not enough just to say, okay, well, I'm the bad guy because I'm bad. that maybe that worked, when, we were all little watching cartoons, or maybe, for some of us, I'm dating myself, the old Superman serials from the 40s and 50s and things like that.
You are dating yourself, JC. Even
yes,
I haven't
know.
seen that.
Yes. I haven't yelled at a cloud yet today, but I will make sure I do that. So, my 20-year-old loves to talk about me being the old man who yells at clouds. But I think that's one of the things with even with villains, is that it's important, and to both of you, it's you both do it so well. Writing the bad guy or the villain, however we want to call them, they in their mind, they think they're doing the right thing. They have a motivation that they think is justified. And I think it's always important to kind of realize or keep that in mind when we're developing our characters, because I think that makes it a little bit more fun.
Well, it does.
Sure.
They can't be cardboard characters. On the flip side, I'll say to you, if I have a pet peeve, I really do. I object to stories where at the very end you say to yourself, like when you're talking about clues or red herrings, I want people to feel as if, oh, I should have gotten that, but it was right there in front of me. That kind of feeling. Not, where did that person come from? They were the shopkeeper from 12 chapters ago who never came back again. That kind of thing. I think it needs to be something. We have to play fair. We have to play fair with our readers, and give them a chance to try to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And kind of along that line, Sarah, do we have any other questions from the chat before I get into a question that I've been dying to ask?
Oh, yes. Well, one of our folks, Renee, has asked, does Judy have any pets? Because she's like, I know Sweet Evie and Gorgeous Maria. She wants to know who the pets are in Judy's life, because we love our pets.
I do. I have two cats, and their name is Dr. Watson, and the other one is Agatha. So,
nice.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, and actually in the book, I have two cats in the book, and they are Trixie, and actually I think I use, not awful, I'm on air, so I'm trying to remember, Watson. So, so anyway, so yes, I have two cats. They're the love of my life. They're Watson. I actually should post a few. He sits up here in my study and works with me. He comments on how I'm doing. So, right? He does.
Yes,
and I don't know what it is, but there's something about a manuscript. He loves to sit on a manuscript.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, can you move off my notes here? So yes. And they're not my first two cats, but you love them, and then you lose them, and then of course you go to a shelter and you fall in love with the next one and bring them home.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I like to think that Evie is like a nice mix of all of the pets that have come before her. Because sometimes I look at her, it's like, gosh, you remind me of Violet, who I had when I was 8 years old, and so I feel like they're always all there. So and they definitely make for great writing companions.
They do. Absolutely. I actually, in the book, there's a dog also in the book, which is owned by our detective that Helen ends up working with. But he's really modeled after one of my daughter's dogs. My daughter is a huge dog fanatic. She typically has 3 dogs. She did lose one last year, so she has 2 right now. And they show up at my house, especially over the summer. And then my house has, then if her dogs come, then my son has to bring his dog, and then my brother has to bring his dog. And I'm like, oh my God. And my 2 cats are hiding under the bed all weekend. So anyway, it's chaos.
JC, what did you want to pan to?
Well, I just kind of wanted to before we get run out of time, because I can't believe we're already 35 minutes in.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. So Judy, your series is called the Chesapeake Bay series, correct?
Yes.
Why the Chesapeake Bay area?
Well, I was a broker outside of Philadelphia, suburbs for years and years and years, for all those years. And then probably about 12 years ago, my husband and I, we've always been sailors and we love the water. We're actually lovers of the Adirondacks and Lake George and Lake Placid and those areas. We know those areas really well. Our children grew up going up there for a week or 2 or 3 on over the summers, that kind of thing. And we were always looking for some place to put a boat in the water. And we finally, all of a sudden, it was like, oh my gosh, the Chesapeake Bay is just barely a little over an hour south of where we were living. But we just never headed in that direction, which sounds crazy. So we ended up downsizing. We left a big old Victorian that we spent 25 years stripping wallpaper and breaking down plaster. And we're big rehabbers. We've been through them all. Anybody needs advice on what you should do to your house and how not to do it, just email me. I'll be happy to give you advice. We've made all the mistakes. But when we finally ended up letting go to the big homestead, we decided that Chesapeake was the right solution because it was frankly, still an hour or so, not too far, an hour and a half from my work. I was continuing to work, so was my husband, and for another 10 years, just months away. And we could actually have a boat in the water and look at the water. And that's what we do. So we live on a house, the house we chose, which is very bizarre. And it's actually featured in the book. There's, some changes to make the story work, but we live literally on a cliff on the Chesapeake Bay on the end of a point right near a lighthouse. And we purchased a sailboat as part of our move. We said, if we're going to do this, then we're going to get ourselves a sailboat, not a Hobie Cat, not a Sunfish, not a charter that is all broken. We're going to actually buy a boat. So, and we love it. And we use it obviously from like May through November, right up to about Thanksgiving. So, but that's how we ended up on the Chesapeake, because we could still to work, believe it or not. I know everybody thinks the Chesapeake is it's really an hour north of Baltimore and an hour south of Philadelphia. So we made it work for about 10, 12 years until we just couldn't drive anymore. And anyway, so that's how we ended up here. Yeah. So I'm very blessed, very, very lucky that we ended up making that decision. Yeah. So.
And it sure sounds like it was just kind of a no-brainer then to set your books there then.
Well, I tell you, it's interesting you say it too, because as far as the book is concerned, the setting is a small village in the Chesapeake, which is really where we live. And what I find so interesting, and it's part of what I enjoy even just looking out the water, and I build that into the storyline. There's a little bit of tension there between the old folks, the people that grew up on the bay, and they're the crabbers, or the fishermen, they're the farmers that farm right on the water that comes down to hit the bay itself. And you have those, and then you have the new people coming in with new money, and they're building brand new fancy houses, a lot larger than the ones that used to be there, and they're encroaching on what the locals feel is water along the houses along the water. So that creates a really interesting setting. And but as I say shortly as you start the storyline, is when you're pulling into this town, it's a real water town. It's a real water town. You see shops there that are fancy and have nice looking handbags, and then you see another shop right next to it that's selling bait out of a Coke machine. It's a real juxtaposition of what a mix of people and what goes on in a town. And I think it's pretty realistic for America in general. So a lot of history there, a lot of history.
In hearing you talk about, the juxtaposition between the new money that's coming in versus the people that have lived there all of their lives, that's in my book. That's like how Coco, she grew up in Central Shore. The book takes place in Delaware, and she grew up in Central Shore. She moved away, and she comes back with a windfall of cash from her startup acquisition. And so she's kind of straddling this line of like, I was born and raised here, and my family is a middle class family, and yet now we have all this new money coming in, and she has this money to be able to live in the fancy house, to drive the nice car, which Judy, shout out, Mini Coopers, love them.
Yes,
Coco drives a Mini Cooper.
Yes. Well, that's a Nancy Drew thing. Nancy Drew, I thought to myself, excuse me, I'm just sorry I jumped in on your story, but Nancy Drew I always pictured that in today's world, it would be a Mini Cooper. So that's why Helen drives a Mini Cooper.
In the Nancy Drew movie they had come out maybe a couple years ago now. It was like out for a weekend and then went straight to like digital DVD. It was I think it was Secret of the Old Staircase, or
I didn't see it. I better check that out.
It was really cute.
It was here and gone and
luckily we went to see it opening weekend because I'm that person that's like, I need to see the Nancy Drew movie right now. And she's driving around in a Robin's Egg blue Mini Cooper, and I drive a green Mini Cooper.
I promise I didn't take it from the movie. I didn't know that.
But you're right. That's how like her car like transposed into, you know, the 21st century.
Yeah.
So that's always fun.
I'll throw something out to you about this storyline that might be interesting to people listening who haven't read the book or seen it. And that is because we talked about Nancy Drew, which was what made me think of it. And the storyline actually, very quickly, you find out that Helen develops this detection club. She names it a detection club. And what she does is, because she's such a mystery fanatic herself, she picks out 5 or 6 of her favorite amateur sleuths, one of which is Nancy Drew, but the others is Jane Marple, Jessica Fletcher, Nora Charles, Agatha Raisin. I guess that's it. That's 5. I feel like I'm missing one.
Was Trixie a part of it?
I'm sorry?
Trixie? Was Trixie a part of it, or was she
Trixie
just
is very little? Yeah, she is
Okay.
named, the cat's named after that, but very, very little. It's actually those, I feel like oh my goodness, I feel terrible that I'm missing one of my children here. Anyway, but the idea being is that this group of women they're the ones she listens to through this whole solving of the mystery, to give her guidance as to how she should be proceeding and figuring out who the killer is and why it happened. And so, for example, there's not probably, you know, a few chapters in, she's talking to the detective, and the detective says something to her, and she said, you know what Jane Marple says, the living through a mystery or a murder is not nearly as much fun as reading one. And you know, it's so there's different quotes and things like that, and each one of her detective sleuths are portrayed in their own personality. So Nora Charles, of course, is the one that Helen sort of thinks of when she goes in to meet someone, and she feels like she has to be socially well dressed and sharp and, you know, that kind of person. So, you know, at a cocktail party, she's going to come in thinking herself mentally as a Nora Charles.
Yes.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. There's one scene where the detective asks her if who are you tonight? Are you Jane Marple? Are you Nancy Drew? And she looks at him and she says, Nancy Drew is too young for this event, and Jane Marple is too old. I'm Nora Charles tonight. So, you know, so they're all intermixed there, and they're just sort of her mental support system. Now, she could be a little crazy if you want to think it that way, but anyway, so. And I'll just say that what was interesting about it was not part of my original story. And I had really written the book, I'd say easily 2/3 of the way. And I just felt like it was just a piece missing in the overall storyline that I wanted. And that's what came to mind. And so I went back and I built it into the story. And I really didn't know. I thought, this is either going to be welcomed by readers, or they're going to say, I don't like this at all. And they seem to love it. So that's exciting for me. Yeah.
I really liked how Joe McAllister, the detective, just like how he went with it. Because there were parts where it's like, when I was reading, it's like, is she speaking as herself, or is she speaking as one of the members of the detection club? And the way that he is just like, I'm here for it, was really endeared me to his character a lot, because it's like, wow, this guy is like signing up for whatever. And he was great.
He's not always welcoming. I mean, there are times he's like, do not bring them up again. You know, I don't want to hear about it. You know, so, but what's interesting about it is he really wasn't a mystery buff, and she teaches us through the storyline how these women are pretty smart all in their own way, right? And bring something to the table of solving this mystery.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think is so much fun. I'm sure it applies to all different kinds of genres in storytelling, but especially in mysteries, because we have such a rich history of such wonderful characters. And, Judy, you telling me that story, makes me think of my Allie Cobb. She, at one point in one of the books, somebody accuses her of trying to be Jane Marple. And Allie says, no, Veronica Mars. And so there's another one. And, and so it's just, we have so many wonderful amateur sleuths to draw from, whether it's inspiration in the ideas, or even then the opportunity to weave them in the stories, into the stories is just, it's just wonderful.
Mm-hmm. It is. So it made this a lot of fun. I think it made it fun for the readers. I mean, Jessica Fletcher's very buttoned up and methodical and serious in a lot of respects, even though she likes to laugh, but she's kind of like that. And then of course you have an Agatha Raisin who was just, she's a little bit crazed. She's a little bit crazed, and she's a little foul mouthed, etc. So I keep that out of it. But anyway, it makes it fun, and we're really all very lucky that we have so much in the history of mystery writing. So. Yeah. And I'll have to say to you, for that reason, this has been an interesting venture for me because what a community this is of writers. I mean, people like yourself that I never knew 3 years ago. And it's really, if there's anyone out there that's thinking about writing, I can't encourage them enough to try. Yeah, to try.
It's such a small community when you think about it. It's like amazing how, yes, there are so many books out there in the world, but like as authors, like we're so connected to each other, and as a community, building each other up, supporting each other. I wouldn't have I wouldn't have an agent, I wouldn't have a book deal if it hadn't been for JC. So it's just like the whole, like, it is very wild to think about how welcoming and warm the community is. So I thank you, Judy, for pointing that out.
Yeah, I mean, and I echo that. And Sarah, the fact that you have an agent and a book deal is about your talent, not about me. I was happy to make a suggestion that worked out, so that was really cool. But yeah, I think that's one of the things about writing. And to your point, Judy, if there's anybody out there listening right now who is thinking about it, yes, writing can be a solitary venture, but I think. And I'm sure it is, again, with all genres, but the mystery community is so supportive. And I really do believe it's a community where just about everybody truly believes in the old mantra that a rising tide lifts all boats. Mm-hmm. And we're in competition. If we're in competition with anybody, it's with ourselves to write the best books that we can. And that way we can cheer each other on when it's time to celebrate, like, Judy's Agatha nomination, because that's so cool.
Thank you. It's very sweet of you to say that. It's because there's room for all of us, and because everyone brings something a little bit different. I mean, what I wrote would be different than you, JC, or Sarah, or anyone else that's listening in. It's just that's what makes it fun. That's what makes one of my favorite. That's what makes 31 flavors. So.
And that's that's why we, JC and I started this podcast, web series, whatever label we're giving it, because we just wanted
we haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, we just wanted to talk with more people and connect with more authors. And Judy, you coming on for our first show is a great show of faith in us, and we thank
your
you.
Guinea pig. No, I'm kidding.
And as we begin to wind down our evening, I would like to pose our kind of final topic question for the night. This one will be fun, light. Hopefully we'll give our readers and listeners and viewers some more books and shows to put on their lists. But besides our books, what are you reading and what are you watching right now on TV, streaming, whatever platform is out there these days?
Well, I'm a BritBox fan. Actually, I discovered something that is very kind of cozy-ish. It's on a station I didn't even know existed. It's called Up Family and Faith or something like that. It's sort of a separate subscription thing. It's called Hudson and Rex. About a young detective and his dog Rex. He's and I mean, it's just a great fun storyline. But then of course, last night we were watching Vera, which is, so serious. And, so anyway, so, you have the whole gamut, right? It just depends on your mood. And as far as books are concerned, I mean, there's so many good books out there. The people that are nominated right now for, in my group that I have 2 other level best authors there. Mally Becker and Lori Duffy Foster, and I'm just so excited that it's just kind of amazing to me that all 3 of us, we happen to know each other and we were all nominated, so it's fun to share it. And their books are fantastic. There's just so much out there to even, how to even choose. I really can't tell you, So, but there's so many out there, and we're very lucky. We're very lucky.
JC, what about you? What are you reading and watching?
So right now on the reading front, I am reading Kelly Garrett's new novel, Like a Sister.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Kelly's Detective by Day books. It breaks my heart that she was only able to write 2 of them. Hopefully, Kelly, if you're out there listening or you see this, we need more Dana Anderson in our lives. And so I was really excited when Kelly's new book came out. I was a little worried reading the reviews whether or not it was going to be a little too dark for me, because I'm one of those people that I write what I like to read. I love cozy traditional mysteries. I'm not real far into it, maybe 60 or 70 pages, but I'm just absolutely loving it. Kelly is such an amazing storyteller. It's a story set in New York City. The main character's half-sister is found dead in a park, and the police just think it was an overdose, and it's up to the main character to, in effect, prove the police wrong. And so I'm really, really loving that. So it's a little bit of a departure for me. And as far as what I'm watching, my wife and I are still in the midst of our binge of Castle, because we never saw Castle
Love Castle.
this time around. Yeah. So we are in season 6 now. So Kate and Rick still have not gotten married, still haven't figured out what date they're going to get married, even though they finally seem to be deciding now maybe it's going to be sometime in September. So, so that's what I've been watching, even though I did over the weekend watch one of the Agatha Christie on BritBox.
Yes,
to your
me
point,
too.
Judy. Watched Murder on the Links, the BritBox Poirot adaptation of that one. So, and along that line, I am going to also make a shout out that later this month, there is going to be a new production directed by Hugh Laurie of Why Didn't They Ask Evans? Based on that novel. That is it stars Will Poulter and Emma Thompson, Jim Broadbent. So it's sounds like an amazing cast. So I've rambled enough. Sarah, over to you. What have you been watching and reading?
You really set me up very nicely, because I actually just finished listening to Kelly Garrett's Like a Sister. I got it on audiobook because I don't have the time to sit down and read as much as I would like to. So I pop in my earbuds when I'm doing other things around the house, and I'm just constantly listening. And the narrator is flawless. Absolutely wonderful. I don't want to give anything away, but I pride myself in being able to figure out who has done whatever deed has been done. And Kelly just hit me out of nowhere. I was like, that has not happened since I probably started writing mysteries, because I'm in the mindset of I know where things are going. So I can puzzle it out, but hers was so good. Absolutely loved it. When it comes to what I'm watching, on the mystery perspective, I don't know if you guys have heard of Murderville on Netflix.
No, I've got to write this down.
It didn't work for me.
We're 2 episodes in, and I think it's just the silliness of it that I appreciate. And for some reason, I'm just stuck in this is Arrested Development, but with a mystery sort of involved. And I like being able to like figure out the mystery when the celebrity host is like totally clueless. Judy, the premises of it is that Will Arnett plays a detective, and everybody on the set has a script of like what this murder investigation is, but then they bring in a celebrity guest detective. The first episode was Conan O'Brien, and he's not given a script, and he just has to like go along with what's happening on the screen. And it's very like, it's completely silly, and like, if you're into serious mysteries, this is not it. But it definitely like was.
I don't know about you, JC. This might be a little out there for me, as far as that's concerned.
I really wanted to like it because Will Arnett is so much fun. So yeah, I mean, anybody out there thinking about it, give it a try because, like Sarah said, it is silly and fun.
And then on the non-mystery perspective, because for some reason, like I think I've pretty much watched every mystery thing out there that I can get my hands on. I'm watching the season 5 of The Last Kingdom, which is one of the best TV shows that I've ever watched in my life. It is about King Alfred's reign of England, and it's stunning. I think George R.R. Martin just like wrote something on social media. It's like, hey, I haven't written the last Game of Thrones book yet, but I'm watching this series and it's amazing and everything that like TV should be. So it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of like historical drama action. And then we also just finished watching Archive 81, which already got canceled by Netflix, which I'm super bummed about, because it was about this man that was restoring tapes from a fire of a building that had burned down, and like weird supernatural stuff starts happening with these tapes come to life. So it that one was very, very wild. So if you like spooky things, I would recommend giving that a shot.
As you're chatting, hope you don't mind, I have a question to throw out to the two of you, and I'll be curious if your reader or your viewers or listeners or have a comment on it too. And that is, you made me think of it with Castle, because they said as soon as, now the show went on for years, right? So, but they said as soon as they started getting married, then the audience started to drop off. And, in traditional mysteries, unless they're a married couple, but they tend to, keep that romance thing going for a while. And I don't know about the two of you, but I find that really a challenge. I had in Murder and the Master, when my kids read the book, they read the manuscript before it came out, before I had done my final edits. And there's a scene in which Joe McAllister offers to stay at the house with Helen after she's been broken into or whatever. And she says, no, I'm tired. Thanks very much. I'm fine. And she realizes later that he's sitting out in his car, sleeping in the car. And my children, my kids, they're not kids anymore, but they're 40 now. And they said, Mom, you gotta let him in the house at least. God, you're such a prude. I mean, oh my God. I said, all right, I'll let him in the house. So, but romance in books is, I don't know, it's a touchy place to go. It really, really is. So, who's the famous? Is it Lucy Burdett who has the series where it's the books she owns the bookstore, and it's down in Florida. I can't remember where it is, but anyway, and she and her husband, his name is Max, I think. They do get married, and it's very successful, and it's gone as a married couple for a long time. So, but she must have done it just right.
I had Coco, like she starts off the series with her boyfriend, because I was like, I don't really want to deal with romance, and I want to talk about murder, and I want to talk about the mystery, and I want to talk about her friends. So I kind of like skipped ahead to like she's already got her boyfriend. Yes, they'll have some ups and downs. We'll see what happens. But for me, like I agreed that like for when I'm reading a mystery novel, like I want to know, personal character development, yes, but I definitely just want to know like who killed that person. So I think that's where my focus tends to go, and that's kind of what ended up happening.
Right. Oh, that's funny. That's really
Yeah,
funny.
I took for my Allie books, I took a little bit of a different tack. In that Allie is single throughout all 6 books, but she does meet a fellow that as the series progresses, their relationship becomes more and more serious. But it's never other than like it's a plot line through all 6 books. That's about it. Probably the biggest part that it plays is that, Brent is a part of Allie's life, and they care about each other, they fall in love, and all that kind of part. But one of the things that it allowed me to do is it created some tension, because Allie is the type that, hey, I'm going to investigate these murders because it's important to me. Brent is like, don't do it because I care about you. I don't want you to get hurt. So that provided some additional storytelling angles there. So so I mean, it's again, the great thing about storytelling, we all are able to do it a little bit differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
There is no wrong. So anyone who's
Nope.
thinking about writing, they should know there is no wrong. Just get it on paper. Absolutely.
Sure.
And don't be afraid for input. I don't know who else is listening, who's participating, but I think that's one of if there's anything I've learned through this whole process is be open to input and feedback and people questioning what you said or did. And it's really hard because this is your baby, right? And to not take it every word personally. But if you can let that go and just look at it as an opportunity to think of your storyline from different directions, it'll actually help you.
Yes. And Judy, where can, as we kind of wrap up for this evening, where can readers find you next? Are conferences that you're going to be at? I mean, I know one big conference that you're going to be at, but how can our listeners and viewers find you after they finish watching the stream?
Well, I mean, I have a website, Judy L. Murray Mysteries. They can find me there. And I'm very active on Facebook. So you can find me as Judy L. Murray Author. So I hope you'll connect with me there. Yes, I'll be at Malice Domestic in a couple of weeks. I'm actually scheduled to go to Killer Nashville down in Nashville. I think that's mid-July. And I just decided that was something that I wanted to check out. I've heard good things about that conference. And actually, I'm so glad actually reminded me. This Sunday, I'm at a vineyard called Elk River Vineyard. No, I'm sorry, Blue Elk Vineyard, and it is not very far from my house, right in my general area, the Chesapeake, an hour from Philadelphia, an hour from Baltimore. And if you want to come down and meet me at 4:00, we're going to have a book talk about my books and my writing, and you can, have a glass of wine and see a beautiful spot on the bay, looking out the water. I don't know if the weather's going to cooperate very much, but it'll still be fun. Even if it's a nasty day, it's a good excuse to go find a good glass of wine. It's an amazing vineyard, beautiful buildings. It's fun to be in. It's an old barn. And so if you're looking for anything and you're within driving distance of the Chesapeake Bay, you might think about coming up. Yeah, you can find it. If you go on Facebook, you'll see information for it.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, I know that we'll be seeing you at Malice. Very much looking forward to that. For our viewers, JC and I will be back with our next episode of the Bookish Hour on May 12th. So we hope that you will join us for our session. Judy, thank you so much again for sharing your time with us and for your engaging conversation. Thank you very much to our viewers for giving us wonderful questions and for hanging with us on this Thursday night. Thank goodness we have almost made it to Friday. JC, anything else that you want to leave us with before we sign off for the evening?
I just want to thank Judy, you for coming and hanging out with us. Everybody who is out there in Cyberland, thank you for listening and watching. Sarah, you are an amazing partner. I do like 3% of the work in doing this, it seems. And we're going to take a couple of weeks off, but like Sarah said, all three of us are going to be at Malice Domestic in Bethesda, Maryland in 2 weeks. But then, yeah, we're going to pick up in May. And then if there are any authors out there who would be interested in paying us a visit, hit us up. Sarah and I are both all over social media, and we love talking books. So thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you very much, everybody. We're signing off for the night, so enjoy your upcoming weekend. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us, everybody.